DNS stands for the Domain Name System, and this database is what allows the logical name to be mapped to an actual physical address. Every website possesses an IP address, which shows its particular location on the internet. The IP address is used to locate the website from within the DNS database and send the requested site back to the end user. The domain name and associated IP address are at the heart of the DNS system, along with the DNS servers. In order to get an IP associated with a domain name, it must first be registered through a hosting entity. A domain name can be registered through any internet service provider, or ISP, and it only takes a few minutes to complete the process. When registering a domain name, personal and confidential information must be entered into the database of the ISP, including 1. Legal name of either the individual or the entity. 2. Physical street address. 3. Email address. And 4. Phone number. This same information must also be entered into the database for the technical and administrative context for the domain name being registered. This information is also known as the Whois data and can be found by going to www.whois.com and typing the domain name in question. After it has been entered, all of the personal details described can be seen. The Whois data is also an established protocol that goes all the way back to 1982 when the APRANET first came into being. The APRANET is considered to be the first true version of the Internet. At the time, the Internet Engineering Task Force published the first Whois protocol. It required the users of the APRANET to key in their contact information and data. As the APRANET evolved into the Internet as we know it today, the Whois protocol changed to require personal information from all stakeholders involved in accessing the respective Whois databases. The included entities such as the registrants of the domains, law enforcement agencies, intellectual property and trademark owners, and business entities and individuals. Two major security vulnerabilities are present in the Whois protocol. 1. None of the above described information and data is kept private. It is visible to the entire public. 2. Instead of just one entity managing the Whois protocol and its related databases, a group of separate entities without set standards or best practices fill this role. Because of these vulnerabilities, the Whois protocol and even the DNS system have experienced substantial cyber threats and hacks. The primary goal of these hacks is to gain personal information and manipulate it to launch identity theft attacks against individuals and other forms of attacks on servers, including malware, spyware, adware, and distributed denial of service, or DDoS attacks. All of this falls under the grouping known as DNS harvesting. DNS harvesting has been around for a long time. Early on, the primary objective was simply to gather all available public information about an individual or business entity and use it for marketing purposes. Once web usage started to explode in the 1990s, the intent became much more sinister. DNS harvesting enables hackers to gain access to the DNS records of an organization, which they then use to map the network. DNS harvesting methods include exploiting Whois, unauthorized zone transfers, using Windows Tracert or the Unix traceroute tool, and transfers from servers that have not been set to transfer data to specific servers. Luckily, a security analyst can control unauthorized transfers by specifying the DNS servers where zone transfers can take place. With the sophisticated tools available today on the dark web, a determined cyber attacker can launch an attack on an individual or organization by integrating malicious code straight into the email itself. Once this message is opened, the malicious code is inserted onto the application or workstation and can automatically pick up the personal and confidential information and data of the end user. This can be done so covertly that the individual does not even know they have become a victim. Phishing is a widely used social engineering strike that relies on deception to get unsuspecting mass email recipients to reveal personal financial data. For example, a phishing target unwittingly clicks on a link that resembles the address of their bank and enters personal credentials, which the hacker can then use to access the target's account. By sending test phishing emails to employees, a security analyst can discern how alert they are to such threats. If you find a number of people in your organization responding, you need to train them to recognize fake emails and delete them without opening. Consider this a test hand slap. In the context of environmental reconnaissance, variables refer to factors that could affect IT security. The impact on security might vary depending on whether your network is wired or wireless, internal or external, whether the environment is virtual or physical, and in the cloud or on the premises. These variables should be understood when evaluating the security environment. Wireless networks are more vulnerable than wired networks because wireless signals can be intercepted by anyone who happens to be within range, without the transmitter being able to detect the data packet capture immediately. Cables within wired networks make it possible for you to control where your packets are headed. On wireless networks, you will need to secure confidential data through encryption. Wireless local area networks pose another risk. It's possible for an attacker to set up an identical access point or evil twin on a different channel. This can be done by replicating the authentic AP SSID. In this way, a hacker can lure users to his network and attack them there. A security analyst needs to test a wireless network for these fake APs. Virtual servers, as well as entire virtual networks that reside on a single physical server, are not completely safe. They could be at risk if the virtualization manager or the host has security issues. Attacks on virtual systems can manifest as unsecured VM migration. Migrating a virtual machine or VM to a different host without updating the configuration and security controls can leave it vulnerable to an attack. VM escape. A guest OS can escape from its VM shell and connect with the hypervisor, enabling the guest OS to interact directly with the other VMs as well as the host. VM sprawl. The more VMs, the greater the likelihood of lapses because of an administrator might find it difficult to manage too many VMs. Denial of service. An attacker can inundate a target VM with requests resulting in disruption of the target's online services. Hosts and guest interactions. Interactions between host and guest systems can increase vulnerabilities. If operating systems running on the host and guest systems are compromised, other machines become vulnerable, resulting in a higher risk level. It's essential to ensure that robust security software is installed on guest and host systems. You also need to ensure that security patches are up to date and that all redundant services and accounts are disabled. Inadequate VM isolation. Attackers can also get inadequately secured VMs to make unprotected connections with each other. This could potentially open access to the host. Hypervisor attack. An adept hacker can gain direct access to the hypervisor and control it, in which cases all the VMs become accessible. This poses a major risk to data, systems, and the entire network. These attacks are less common because of the difficulty level. A security analyst should try to attack the system just as an attacker would in order to discover weak points. You can use hypervisor tools to monitor traffic because these afford a clearer picture of traffic than other monitoring tools. It's important to insulate VMs from each other, control interaction from the host, and control the virtual and physical environment. When deciding on security controls for networks, you need to implement proper access controls to the router or firewall in order to filter traffic from one segment to another. This is necessary to prevent unexpected and potentially harmful inter-segment traffic. Configuration of access control lists for internal networks is not the same as it is for extranet or demilitarized zone. Important concepts to remember include: one vulnerable network puts other networks connected to it at risk. When internal databases are connected to external networks, the firewall has more access points. External networks are likely to have openings that malicious users can exploit to steal confidential information. The number of external network connections should be restricted because too many links increase the risk of malware attacks. Remember that you'll need to review all access control lists and ensure that the following variables are in order. A virtual private network, VPN, which provides a secure connection. The intranet is not exposed to extranets and DMZs. Robust access controls for guest users so that their access is limited. And simultaneous alerts, monitoring, and auditing.